Senator, great to have you on the program. Thank you.
Good morning, Harris. Good to be on with you.
Oh, so explain to me what the whole point of this is, if Democrats actually might not be able to get court packing passed. And those Democrats who are pushing against it, what is the political play here for them?
Well, Harris, the whole point is a Democratic power grab. The Democrats are angry they don't have a liberal majority on the Supreme Court, and they want to add 4 justices, shockingly, the exact number they would need to get Democratic-appointed justices into a majority on the court. Now, they may not be able to pass this in the Congress right now, in part because the Senate is evenly divided, but part of this is the Democrats trying to push the boundaries of what is possible. So if they win larger majorities at some point in the future, they'll put more pressure on their colleagues to vote for this and ultimately to pack the court. You've seen that some from the Obama era to the Biden era. And when Obamacare passed, they were very explicit they weren't going to provide health care to illegal aliens. In the campaign last year, that was the conventional position, though, for all Democratic candidates to include Joe Biden. That's why it's so essential that we denounce it today as an illegitimate attack on the foundational principles of this country, the rule of law and constitutional government, and that we win back the House and the Senate next year to make sure it has no chance of happening.
Well, look, as you read this and you start to understand, I mean, when we saw Speaker Nancy Pelosi, we carried it live here on Faulkner Focus, simply say she has no intention at this point of taking anything like this to the floor. I mean, that took some of the wind out of the sails. Just a few minutes later, Democrats were announcing the bill. So, you know, again, is this intimidation to the court from Democrats? Like, oh, they may not get their way, but can they intimidate the court by pretending that they might?
Well, that's another effort by the Democrats as well, and something they've done in the past. You know, Chuck Schumer last year stood on the steps of the Supreme Court and said that justices by name were going to reap the whirlwind if they ruled in a way that he did not favor. So this is a long-term effort, not just to hopefully change the bounds of opinion in the Democratic Party to ultimately pack the court, but also to try to intimidate justices on the Supreme Court to hedge and trim and to make decisions based on something other than the law and the facts of each case.
I just remember some, including Joe Biden, pushing against that maneuver that FDR was accused of, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late justice, said no, 9 are enough. I mean, people from the left side of the aisle said that this would be such a bad idea, a dangerous idea. I just wonder what has changed for them.
Well, what's changed, they're drunk with power, and they'll do nothing to try to seize more power and more control over the lives of Americans. You're right that Joe Biden has taken the position that we shouldn't expand the court. The late Justice Ginsburg, Justice Stephen Breyer, another liberal on the court, just a couple weeks ago gave a speech and said we shouldn't expand the court. But these Democratic politicians in Congress see a center-right majority on the court, and they worry that that majority might actually uphold the Constitution as it's written and constrain their power. Or it might constrain the power of Democratic governors to lock down their economies, as the court has done repeatedly in California, to the prejudice of, say, of people who are simply trying to have a Bible study in their home. It is an ultimate power grab. It is dangerous, and it threatens to undermine fundamental principles like the rule of law in America.
That's interesting. So you see a bit of mission creep with this among Democrats. This would just kind of creep into every avenue that they would want to take more progressive. Our correspondent Jackie mentioned this, and we do want to get to that. Republicans trolling Senator Markey a bit for that "We Need 9" photo back in 2016. And here are a few more. Senator Marsha Blackburn tweeting, "Is this you?" And Congressman Ken Buck, who was on with me yesterday, posting, "I thought we only needed 9." I mean, it's hard to take those pictures away. All right, we'll move to the next topic, Senator. President Biden declaring the threat from Russia a national emergency, issuing sanctions against the country over its hacking and election meddling. He also recently called Russian President Vladimir Putin a quote-unquote killer. But despite all of that, the president says he still wants to leave the door open for dialogue. Let's watch. I'll get your reaction on the flip.
We could have gone further, but I chose not to do so. I chose to be proportionate. When I spoke to President Putin, I expressed my belief that communication between the two of us personally and directly was to be essential in moving forward to a more effective relationship, and he agreed on that point. To that end, I propose that we meet in person this summer in Europe for a summit to address a range of issues facing both of our countries.
Russia has responded with this. Such aggressive behavior will undoubtedly trigger a resolute retaliation. Washington should realize that it will have to pay a price for the degradation of the bilateral ties. What does that mean, Senator?
Well, it means that Joe Biden, in that very speech, announced that he was employing half measures, that he could have gone farther, but he didn't. Look, if he really wanted to punish Russia for something like the SolarWinds hack into so many of our companies and into our government, if he really wanted to send a message, he would have shut down Russia's pipeline to Germany. It's in the final stages of development. It is the most important foreign policy objective in Russia right now to get that pipeline finished so they can sell gas to Germany. It is terrible that Germany is doing this to our NATO allies in Eastern Europe. But Congress has given the administration the tools on the books to impose sanctions on the Russian firms who are finishing that pipeline, on the European firms who are financing it and ensuring it. They should have been imposed months ago to stop the final miles of this pipeline being built. Yet Joe Biden didn't mention it yesterday. He didn't impose sanctions on it. And I have reports that his administration is dragging its feet on it. That's the way you would have actually punished Russia for its activities. That's the way you would have sent the right message. But as Joe Biden admitted, this is nothing but half measures.
Yeah, so interesting. You've just given us a tangible way to take a look at whether or not this president is serious in this matter. We'll move to this. The U.S. intelligence community is backing off reports from last summer that Russia put bounties on the heads of U.S. troops in Afghanistan. An official says there is only low to moderate confidence now in those reports. A New York Post op-ed with the headline, "The Russian bounty story was one more deep state attempt to hurt Trump." Democrats, including President Biden, attacked President Trump for not acting on the report, which he called a hoax. Here's Jen Psaki on that, press secretary.
Does the president have any regrets for how many times he attacked President Trump on the campaign about this issue for not taking action related to the Russian bounties?
Well, I'm not going to speak to the previous administration, but I will say that we had enough concern about these reports and about the targeting of our men and women serving, the men and women who are proudly serving around the world, that we wanted our intelligence community to look into it.
Senator, what is your reaction to this retraction, basically?
Well, Joe Biden owes President Trump an apology. Joe Biden used that line of attack multiple times in the campaign to include in the presidential debate. I remember when it first surfaced last summer, I was open-minded to it. It sounds like something that Vladimir Putin and the Russians would do. But I sit on the Intelligence Committee, I reviewed it carefully, and again, I could not see where these reports in the media were coming from. And we now have the Biden administration itself confirming that they only have low to moderate confidence, which is pretty low in terms of the intelligence community's assessments. So Joe Biden really owes Donald Trump an apology, as does Kamala Harris and every other Democrat that attacked him on the basis of unsubstantiated media reports.
Before I let you go real quickly, and you alluded to this, but low to moderate confidence in intelligence, what does that even mean? Then why even float this stuff out there? How did this get going if, in fact, once you and others took a look at it, there was not enough there?
Yeah, so it refers to the quality of the sourcing and the methods. Obviously, I can't get into that, but it's on a scale. It's pretty low on that scale of what we believe to be true. How did it get out there? Unfortunately, there are probably some people in the government who didn't like Donald Trump, wanted to help Joe Biden get elected, and they selectively leaked it without providing the proper context to it.
Is there accountability for that, punishment?
There should be. No one should ever leak classified information. It's a very dangerous thing to get into. And the government needs to take more steps to try to ensure that, on the one hand, people who leak classified information are being punished, but also that classified information truly is classified. We have an overclassification problem in some cases. We shouldn't have so much information that is under classification standards. But when the stuff is really classified, when it is truly sensitive, there need to be consequences for leaking it.
Senator Cotton calling on the current president to apologize to the former president over this. We'll see what happens. Thank you. Good to see you.